Rick Clark. I am a fifth-generation farmer from West Central Indiana. Everyone knows where Champaign, Illinois is, just come right across the state line, and that's where we are. Been there a long time. We've been on a journey of regenerative. I didn't realize it was called that, but we've been on this journey for a long time. They've given it a fancy name here lately. This is what drives our system. It's all about those principles. How do you maximize the principles? How can you benefit from them? And today I'm going to talk a little bit about the economic impact of what those have done for our farm, our journey of how we've come from A to B, and the ultimate goal today is to satisfy the audience. I want to try to answer every question that they possibly have. And the first thing that I would like to say about, I'm coming from a long distance away from Bismarck, North Dakota. But when you apply the principles, they work anywhere. So that's what we're going to drive home today. I start again with the family. You know how important this is to me. And you're going to hear a lot in the next 30 minutes of what you've already just heard, because those guys have set me up very well. It's like we almost knew what we were going to have our presentations about, but we didn't. I truly believe that we are, and we're not fully realizing this today, but we are building cocktail packages to combat weed problems. I truly believe that. If you think back in time when, like 2019, it was the mare's tail that was our problem. 2020, it was water hemp. 21, it was giant ragweed. Why? Why did you have certain weeds be that main problem? It's because there was a trigger event from Mother Nature that created the environment for that weed to want to germinate in. What is the sole purpose of every living being on this planet? It has one purpose: procreate. And if that environment is not conducive for that species to procreate, it will not germinate and grow. So we are now going to learn how to harness that power, not only with the exudates from those species you're planting, but we're going to run parallel a systematic biological approach, and together those two are going to create situations where we can start to mitigate weed problems with no iron or no chemistry. Nutrient density goes up as soil health goes up. We know that. There are no failures. It's outcomes we did not expect. I know that sounds corny, but failure is a very negative word. You cannot have negativity in your life. If you have negative people around you, you've got to get different people, because they drag everybody down. Same thing. I don't do that anymore. I mean, there's so much going on, and there's so many plans being changed that you start to think that you can't do this. So you have to stay upbeat and stay positive. Again, I'm just echoing what's already been said earlier today. Carbon markets will require soil health practices. They better. That's all I have to say. I would not be involved in a carbon market. I'm not sure there'll ever be a situation where we can be in a carbon market. Mitchell and some other folks are trying this carbon intensity, and the government just can't seem to get the rules that would be best for the farmer. So I don't know. I suppose it'll happen one day. I don't plan on it. I don't farm for that. I don't do any of that stuff. But those payments had better have the principles of soil health in mind when they decide to launch this out across the United States. Do not underestimate the power of what is happening in this room right now. This is where I ask my question every time I present. Who in the room has been no-tilling for 30 years? See, there's always somebody. Could you guys stand up, please? Look at that. I don't care where I go, I ask that question, and there's always one or two. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. But boy, no-till doesn't work, does it? So that's why you're, huh? Oh, there's challenges. Everything's got challenges. But thanks, guys. Everywhere I go, there's somebody that's been no-tilling for at least 30. Sometimes I've been to a place where a gentleman had been doing it for 50 years. So it's pretty awesome. Talk to those guys. They're here. They're the local guys. Don't underestimate what's happening here. Unfortunately, a farmer's success is measured by yield. That's too bad. There's many other ways. Human health, soil health. Are you socially accepted in your community? Sometimes I wonder if I am, but I think I am. It's just people, again, echoing what was been told. We'll have a farm day, or a field day, there'll be 500-600 people show up, and there won't be one person from the county. I don't understand. Sometimes I feel like I've done something wrong because I've not been a good enough ambassador to the style of farming that we are doing to the local community, and that bothers me. So I try to do things to combat that. We'll have sessions at the farm of only 30 people, and they have to be a farmer from a county that touches the county I farm in. We've done that a couple times. We can get 30 or 35 people to show up, because I feel like what happens is they're out of their element. So the last thing they're going to do is, if they're sitting in the audience, the last thing they're going to do is raise their hand and ask a question, because they're going to feel like everyone's looking at them. So we get these people that are like-minded together in a smaller group, and then everything just opens up. So keep those things in mind on how to maybe try to change that local community. Systematic biology approach running parallel. That's what I was talking about. That you had your panel up earlier and you asked what would you go back and change. That's what I would go back and change. I'm a very stubborn person. If just ask my wife, she'll agree with you in a moment's notice. I was arrogant enough to think that we would grow our own biology, and we are. That's not really arrogance. I guess the arrogant part is I thought it would happen like that. It doesn't happen that fast. At least I didn't see it happen that fast. So what I wish I would change going back would have been a biological, systematic approach running parallel to our regenerative systematic approach. And then I think what we would see would be the dynamic of the soil changing at a much quicker pace. Now, if you are in a tillage system and a chemistry system, then you cannot get enough biology. So it just depends on where you're at. We need to meet people where they are. I have pounded the table hard on being a no-tiller and all cover crops and all of these things. I've probably pounded the table too hard. We have to meet people where they're comfortable in their own skin. Where are you in the journey? How far do you want the journey to go? What's your goal? Is your goal 30% reduction of inputs? Great, let's figure out how to get you there. So I've always said that my style of farming is over there and the rest of the room is somewhere over here. Let's meet right here in the middle somewhere and figure out how to take some of what Chris is doing and Tyler and all the panelists. I'm sorry, I apologize, I don't remember your names, and me, and mix it all together and come up with something that works for you. That's how we're going to move the masses. That's our next challenge here. We've got the regenerative, we have these conferences. It's great. How are we going to move 200 million acres? We got to come up with a plan that will work for the people on where they are. I think the country needs to be cut into 9 regions. And you have an ambassador for each region that implements the principles of soil health that relate to that region. For heaven's sakes, you're not going to farm in New Mexico like you farm in Iowa. We have to understand that. Cocktails should be built using multiple families. I was always so proud to come up with a 16-way cocktail, and here we go, we're going to town, we got 16 species, and you get to looking at that 16 species and you got 3 families of plants. That's not good enough. So what we're trying to do now is when I sit down and I'm looking at building cocktails for certain situations, I'm trying to figure out how to get the most families we can. I came up with one last summer. It's got 6 families in it. That's a lot. It's more than we used to ever have. And I'm telling you, the synergy from the 6 families will blow a cocktail of 3 families away. It's absolutely incredible the amount of cover crop growth I've witnessed in the fall, just last fall, 24. It's incredible. So we're constantly learning and constantly changing and trying to make things better. Epigenetics. I'm big on this. Read that definition. Heritable phenotype changes that do not involve alterations in the DNA sequence. You mean we can actually raise something that's non-GMO? Unbelievable. These phenotypic trait changes may result from external or environmental factors or be part of normal development. This goes back, my brain goes back to thinking when I was 14 or 15 years old, working beside my father on the farm, and everything that we're trying to do today is trying to remember everything we forgot when our ancestors were here. That's basically what we're doing. I haven't done anything new. Cover cropping's not new. Rotational moving cash crops around isn't new. I mean, first thing they used to do when they homesteaded, they'd get a 160 and cut it into four pieces. Corn, beans, wheat, and clover, and that was the hay for the horses. Then the clover was plowed down and became the fuel for the corn, and they just rotated. We're not doing anything new. We're just trying to remember everything we've forgotten. So I can remember a day when I was 14 or 15, beautiful sunny day. It's time to cut beans. Dad says, go grab the 2 wagons out of the shed and bring them to the field and meet me at the field. I said, what are we doing? He said, well, we're going to fill the wagons with our beans for next year's soybeans. Why would we do that, Dad? We got a seed dealer right down the road. Let's just go buy. No, son, you don't understand yet. I'm wanting to use the same bean because the bean is adapting to our system. This was back in the late 70s, early 80s. I'm like, okay. It meant nothing to me then. Now it does. So as a result of this, and folks, you got to do this legally. We all understand that you can't bin run GMO beans. We know that, right? Because they're traded. But we do understand you can't bin run non-GMO beans also, right? I hope everybody understands that. Well, Rick, there's no traits on a non-GMO bean. That's right. So the seed companies got smart and they patented the genetics. So if you are bin running non-GMO beans, you are going to get hurt big time because that's illegal. We have created our own soybean line. I went to the University of Illinois. There's a building there. It's not on campus, but it's in Champaign. It's a government building. It houses all of the seeds known to man and woman in the world are in this building. We went to the catalog of soybeans, and I bought 10 varieties of soybeans that are off patent, created our own landrace, and we have our own soybeans. Right now, we are in the middle of a corn breeding program, and we are going to have our own corn that it will be our genetics. And these are genetics that go back 50 years. And it's going to be down the line of an open pollinator. It's going to be that type of a corn, and I think that's where we need to be. Is that going to win a national corn growers yield contest? No way. But is it going to maximize what its abilities are in our system? You better believe it. Because what's happening is the genetics today are bred for high fertility and high tillage. That's not what we do. So we are looking for genetics that will thrive in our system or your system, whatever it may be. But we got to do this legally. You have to do it legally. We keep all of our cereal grains back. We don't buy any cover crop seed except for things like vetch and clover. That's pretty much all we buy now. Now, flax and lentils, because I haven't yet figured out how to get the right cleaning to get those taken care of. I'll get a hold of Keith Burns one day and we'll get that figured out. But this is where and we do the same thing with livestock. We don't introduce sires from outside the herd. We pick our sires from within the crop of the babies that we have. We haven't vaccinated our livestock in 10 years. No drugs, no antibiotics, no nothing. You give the animal a healthy system, and the animal becomes healthy. There you go. Clipper cleaner, that thing is as old as I am, born in 1964. And that's how we separate our crops. It's just like what Chris and Tyler are doing. We plant cereal grains with peas. We plant cereal grains with soybeans. And the ultimate goal here is to find a buyer that will buy those crops commingled and take it, and you don't have to separate it. We've got dairies now that are wanting our cereal grains mixed with peas. We've got chicken layers that are calling, and it's absolutely incredible to me how many people are trying to get corn and soybeans out of their livestock's ration. And that should be telling us something. There's something that they're not liking with corn and soybeans. And I get it. We've got this right here. We've got this. This is what we do now. I told you earlier this morning that I am deeply concerned, or I deeply care about diversity. So when you get to, and let's just talk about North Dakota. When you're in North Dakota on October the 1st, what in the world are you going to plant other than a cereal grain, right? And it's typically cereal rye. Well, that's not good. It's good, but it's bad. It's good that you're getting something growing, but it's bad. It's a monoculture, and it's extremely high carbon to nitrogen ratio. It's just not good. So what I did was I thought, and I know this is a stretch, but I thought we could get diversity if we would add rye, wheat, and barley, or maybe triticale together. Now, I know they're all in the same family, but they don't probably give out the same exudate. So now you are able to gather more of the microbial biome that's going to benefit from this. And the only reason why I know this is called a maslin is because I was talking to my wife about this one night at dinner, and I was telling her about how we blended these three together. And wouldn't you know it, the next day on my Facebook feed, I get an article about maslins. But nobody's listening, right? So that's what a maslin is. So what we will do then is we will plant that maslin in the fall, and then we will do a couple of things. We could go to a cold-tolerant pea like a Wyoming pea. What's the grassland? Survivor pea, Austrian winter pea. And we will go in right before the ground freezes and try to plant these as deep as we can get them. I try to get them 3 inches deep. And then they will survive the winter and come out next spring, and then they will grow with the maslin, and everything grows together. The maslin helps hold the pea up. Somebody was talking about peas. Was that you, Tyler, about peas? Well, they'll just go flat. So you got the cereal grain out there to help but here's the other thing that we don't sometimes think about, and again, it's the testing that I do all the time. When you put a cereal grain with a pea, you force that pea to work even harder, and it fixes even more nitrogen because that cereal grain is pulling the nitrogen as that pea is fixing it. So it's making it create even more nitrogen. So the synergies there are incredible. Then we'll harvest that together. So you're out of the food grade market, okay? Because This is all going to probably not make food grade quality. Of course, it's a Maslin already, and it's not going to make food grade. But if you were with a single species, those two are going to mature fairly close, but they're going to be about 2 weeks apart. Harvest it, put them together, leave them together, or harvest it, put them in a bin, get the cleaner out, and clean them and separate. The other way we do it is plant your wheat crop, your Maslin, whatever crop you're planting in the fall. We come out in the spring and we get the same no-till drill and we drill peas or soybeans into that rye or into that cereal grain. Excuse me. We've done it a couple ways. We have gone in and planted these soybeans into that cereal grain and walk away. No chemical, no rolling, just walk away. And harvest at the end of the year. The cereal grain matures in the second week of July. It is just sitting in the head and hanging out, and you're waiting until the soybeans get there. There'll be no food grade here. This is zero food grade. Now you find a dairy or a cattle feedlot that wants a different source of protein. Here you go. We got a cereal grain and a pea mixed together. They run it through their hammer mill, and it goes into their ration, and they've increased their protein by 4 or 5 points. So there's just all kinds of creative ways to make these co-mingling of cash crops or polycropping, whatever you want to call it, how to make them work. Johnson-Sioux bioreactors. I like the Johnson-Sioux because it is being built with products that are from your farm or your region. And then we'll extract that biology out and do it that way. Yeah, that's all I got for that. And the IMOS is here. You got that. That's quick. What is it, 3-4 weeks? And you've got, what is it? 10 days. 10 days, and you've got inherent biology from your farm ready to seed treat and go out and get it across your farm. It's just things like that that make a difference. Okay, this is how we plant soybeans. That is I apologize, I don't have a picture of a row unit, but there's no coulter. There's not a no-till coulter. It's just a double disc opener and a closing system. And this is done at boot stage. And again, I want you to notice there's hardly any weeds. And I'm telling you, it's back to what I talked about earlier. When you take a cereal grain that is a tremendous sequester of nutrients, not only are they sequestering the nutrients that your cash crop needs, but they're sequestering the nutrients that the weeds need. And then with the quick growing, rapid growth of the rye, the shading out effect, that first early weed is not there on our farm. Now, that doesn't mean weeds aren't coming later, but up early, there's hardly anything because we haven't disturbed the ground at this point. If you want to grow weeds, just to do a tillage pass. It's nuts. So this is the way we try to do soybeans. Then we come back, see, notice the date. Now it's June the 2nd. Now, I don't know if you guys can get away with this because I don't know if you will grow enough biomass here to do this. But when you know you're out here at the right time, look over here at the right side of the video here. You see this dust coming off right now? That is not dust from the field. That's pollen. That's when you know you're out there at the right time. That's anthesis. So remember now, and look at the field. I mean, there's just no weeds. So we planted these beans 40 days ago, and they're about this tall, and we just rolled them down. And then look at the date. Now, folks, this is when I do a sequence like this, it's the same field. There's that field on July 19th. So here's where I always say, you don't have to be organic. I'm okay with that. But look at the date. We've done nothing with chemicals, nothing with fertility, and it's July 19th. If you think you need to make a change to that, so be it. Yes, there is weeds coming. There are weeds coming. I'm sorry. There's grass. There's a little pocket of mare's tail right there. It will become there will be weeds. But up until July 19th, you scout your fields and you decide what you want to do. And think about what you've accomplished up to this point. Burn down is eliminated. So glyphosate is out of the equation. Now, these are organic, so they're non-GMO. So now you do a post-spray that works on non-GMO, and everything, life's better, okay? Sometimes you have to roll with Mother Nature. This is June the 2nd. By June the 2nd in Indiana, our rye is almost always at anthesis. This was the first day we got in the field that year, June the 2nd. So I decided to roll the rye first and plant right behind it. So here comes the I&J roller, and folks, that rye is toast. It's dead. Here comes the planter. There's no row cleaners, no coulters. It's a opener and a closer. And if you look, it's really hard to even see where the row units. I mean, if you look close, you know there's one there. You can see there's one here and a couple, but it looks like you haven't even been in the field. And then you come back on July the 16th, and here you are. Look at all that dead rye, creating the thatch and the mulch, feeding the microbes from the bottom up. And this is why it's important to get your cash crop out of the ground running. I mean, it's got to be closing the gap as soon as it can, because that cover crop is soon going to be consumed. When we come back in the fall to harvest, there'll be very little of that cover crop there. And then that's what it looks like when you harvest. That's pretty good. Is every one of our fields like that? No, not even close. But I can tell you why. This field here, the cover crop was planted the fall before in September. I could take you 5 miles down the road to a field that is an absolute train wreck of weeds. And that cover crop was planted in November. So it's absolutely imperative of when you get these cover crops planted. I got a question for you guys I should have asked while you're up here. How are you guys getting such nice tall cover crops? When are you planting those things? Like those fields when the cattle, all I saw were their backs.
That's usually in June.
That's June. And those cattle were out there in September?
Yeah, August, September.
Okay. Yeah. But you got to plan for this. Are you going to be able to do this behind a corn and soybean rotation? No. You got to get diversity in your cash crops. Now, I know you can only raise cash crops that you have a market for, but I'm going to tell you what, folks, the market that we used to have on our farm was 10 or 15 miles down the road. Now it's 800 miles down the road. Milo goes to Texas. I mean, I get calls not every week, but once or twice a month from California. Can we get your corn? How do we get your corn to California, to our dairies? Put it on rail. They don't want to pay the freight because that is going to add about $4 a bushel to their cost. But the point is, there are no boundaries for transportation anymore. Find your market wherever it is. We send beans to Iowa, cover crops to Nebraska. Input reductions. From 2011 to 23, we've reduced diesel fuel on our farm by 46%. And most of that is due to this line here. We've decreased horsepower by 64%. Now, the other reason why we're saving money on diesel is because we're not making all of those multiple passes across the field. And then, of course, no synthetic N, no more MAP, no more potash, no more lime, and no more chemistry. So these are all averages of what we used to do on the farm, because some years we may have been heavy corn and other years we were light corn and so on. So these are just averages. So what do those savings mean to me? The savings of diesel fuel is $62,000 a year. The savings of the synthetic N is $605,000. That's nuts. That much money on nitrogen. MAP, potash, lime, and this one here's the one that always got me. $483,000 of savings of chemistry so that we could have plants that were resistant to the chemistry that we were spraying. How much sense does that make? So I want to tell a little quick story. We farm in Indiana and in Illinois. If you want to grow water hemp, do you guys have water hemp up here? Do you? If you want to grow water hemp, just come to Illinois. It grows like crazy. Come into one of our fields that has a full-blown cover crop package, there's zero water hemp. Zero. This goes back to what I said earlier. Cover crop packages are going to be put together to target certain situations. We're going to sit down at a table like this, and we're going to answer 15 questions. What's your crop rotation look like? What's your fertility? What's your 3 top weeds that you have to deal with every year? So on and so on and so on. Answer these questions, and we're then going to build a cover crop cocktail that will accommodate that situation. That's where we're going with this. I put seed in here because I don't buy much seed anymore. So that's about how much we're saving on the farm. So right now, we are saving that much money on our farm annually. Now do you understand why earlier this morning I said 140 bushel corn will be just fine? So another advantage I have is that I am organic and I have a little higher price market point. So let's do easy math. I don't know if I can make that. Yeah, I think I can do that math. Corn right now is $9 a bushel for organic. That one, yeah. So what is that? What is that? $1,260 gross. Somebody can help me there. $1,260. Yeah, $1,260 gross minus my inputs. Oh, wait a minute. I don't have any. So now you put back in your, so here's the gross. Okay, I've got cash rent and I got mortgages and whatnot, and I don't know, maybe this. Let's go half. So we're netting $600 an acre. That's okay. That's why people that don't understand why I do what I do. It's not about yield, man. It is not. It's just not. I mean, we were talking about this at lunch. The American farmer has become so good at their job. They truly have. I mean, my gosh, they set a record yield for national corn and beans in 23, and then they will turn around and break it in 24. But they've also broken the price. It's pretty simple. Supply and demand. When you got too much supply and not enough demand, there's only one place for the price to go, and that's down. So I don't want to be in that. I want to be on the other side of that, and that's where we are. All right. I sacrifice yield to maintain soil health. I do it every day. Every day, because, folks, if I trip up and do something that will affect the microbial biome, I then have to revert back to adding P and adding K and all those things that I don't want to do anymore. So I will, if we have an outbreak of armyworm and the corn plant is at V3, what do you think we ought to do? If you have a corn plant that's at V3 and there's an outbreak of armyworm or cutworm, what do you think we ought to do with that field? I'm not going to spray it. They'll clip every corn plant off, won't they? Are they going to kill it? They're not going to kill corn at V3. This is where you got to understand what you're doing. Corn's growth point is still underground until V5. So let them wipe that corn. I've done it many times. It probably comes back with a better stand, a more uniform stand. And then, I lost 10 days of growing season. Did I sacrifice yield to maintain soil health? You better believe it, but I still got soil health. That's how you have to start looking at things. I know it's difficult, and I know a lot of us are backed into a financial corner, and you can't have one hiccup. I get that. But at some point, we've got to step out. But you cannot jeopardize the livelihood of your farm. You can't. If you want to do these crazy ideas of everybody that's talking, do them on real, like 5 acres and take a look and see what it's going to do. Don't do it on 500. Grow the nitrogen we need with legumes or cocktails that include as many families as possible. I've already talked about this. If you like to listen to podcasts, Green Cover Seed has a webinar series. I don't know if they're still doing it, but they did. They had Dr. Christine Jones on. She did 4 of them. I know her name's been mentioned a lot here today, but she did 4 of them, and one of them was growing crops that require nitrogen with no inputs. Well worth your listen. Plant green into living cover crops. We're doing her beans into 72-inch tall rye. Plant corn into rye. We understand what's happening. You do have some allelopathy, but it's more, I think, to do with the sequestration of nutrients. Just move your nitrogen forward into your system if you can. It's okay to have 38 plants. I mean, my gosh, the thing's moving all the time. Park your planter no matter the date. I know this is hard to do. I will not plant corn ever before Mother's Day. Never. Many reasons, but one of them is most of your legume cocktails will not be really cranking on fixing nitrogen until after May the 15th. Mother's Day is always the second Sunday of May. Typically, we're not going to plant corn until May 28th into June the 8th, somewhere in that window. So then that makes the whole soybean part of it work excellent because the cereal rye is at anthesis for us around April the 28th. So we're going to plant our beans from April to 28th to May 20th, and then we're perfect to go into the corn. That's not the way I was taught. I was taught that corn is king, and you plant it whenever you can get in the field. That's how I was taught, and that's wrong. Don't plant corn in April again. I hope I never do. Plant multiple cash crops in the same field. This is the future, folks. We need the synergistic relationships of these crops, corn and faba beans. Those two would be great. I think milo and soybeans would be good. Just things like that. All right, I'm almost done. Totally eliminate all inputs. Do I recommend that? It's hard. It's really hard. Can I go I'm probably over on time. Can I explain a little bit how we did this? Because I think this is important. Let me tell you how because you wanted to know how I was getting off Roundup. I'm going to tell you how I got off fertility. I sat down with our agronomist and I said, give me field by field what your recommendations are for a fertility program. And he did. And I pulled out 2 fields. And I said, we're going to take these 2 fields and we're cutting the recommendations in half. Okay? Nothing against you. This is what I want to do. What was the first thing I did before we did this, though? What did I do? I baselined, right? Remember I said you got a baseline? So we went and tested these fields. I wanted to see where the fertility was before we started to take fertility away. First year, cut the fertility in half on those 2 fields, planted the crops, did everything the same. Yields were identical. Everything was the same. Pulled the soil test. I thought, wow, surely everything's going down, right? Pulled the soil test, no change. Next year, same thing. Those same 2 fields, took the same recommendations, cut them in half again. Same thing, raised the crop, cover crops, did all that stuff, did everything. yields were the same, and the fertility actually turned up. What? How's this possible? So we then took those 2 fields, and I brought them over here and took all the inputs away. Pulled 500 acres in and did the same 50% reduction. Did that for 2 more years. And when I saw those 700 acres make no change or increase in fertility and yield, I'm done. And that's when we started taking it all away. So that's how you move into this. Another way to move into this is to create a grid. And I did this for a large group in Argentina this year, or last year. Created a grid, and they replicated that grid across all of their fields, and they planted, the grid was made to the width of their machinery, so they went through the fields, and they did 0 inputs, 10% reduction, 15% reduction, 30% reduction. I don't remember what all the categories were, but that was replicated over multiple fields. They now pulled all that data in, and now they've correlated all that data, and they found that 28% reduction of inputs is the perfect sweet spot for they want to be. And that's what they're doing now. I mean, they're saving millions of dollars. It's just things like that that you've got to get out and try, but you've got to test, folks. I mean, you got a guy here who knows how to set tests up. Take advantage of him. He's right here. No CFAP government subsidy payments since 19. I don't take any payments. Eliminated crop insurance 6 years ago. No insurance. No longer in any government programs, ARC or PLC. I am not going to stand up here and ask everyone to take everything away, and then I'm going to stand like this with my hand out for the government and say, I need my money now. That's not how I'm built. If there's a job that needs to be done, I will never ask anybody to do a job that I wouldn't do myself. Period. That's how you build loyalty with your team members. You get in the trenches with them. I'm in the trenches. I'm trying to help show you that we don't need those subsidy payments. I mean, our system is broken, and it has to get overhauled. I am very fortunate in the fact that I'm being, I don't know how I want to say it. They're asking for some help. So we'll see what we can do. Certified organic with no tillage, and folks, that's hard. I mean, that is really, really hard. To truly be regenerative, you have to take everything away, and I mean everything, and that's too bold of a statement. Also, I think we're all on a path of being regenerative. I think this is where it's so difficult to come up with a definition of regenerative. If we asked everyone in the room to write down their definition, yes, there'd be some similarities, but they'd all be different. You know, are we going to really worry about the tillage aspect of it, or the minimal disturbance aspect? Or are we worrying more about the chemistry? We're worrying more about diversity. I mean, how do you create a definition that can encompass every agricultural acre of land in this world? You can't. You cannot. At least I don't know how. I've been asked twice to work with groups to come up with a definition, and we never could get to one that wasn't 5 pages long. If you're not uncomfortable with what you are doing, then you are not trying hard enough to change. It's that simple. I am extremely uncomfortable. I love milkshakes and I love Snickers candy bars, but I can't eat those anymore. So we've got to change. I challenge everyone here to get a little uncomfortable. I think you'll like how it feels. I'm proud to be a farmer, but I'm way more proud of the way I farm. I call it regenerative organic stewardship. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.